Okay. Let a couple more people come in. We just opened it up. Jon, tell us before we get started, tell us the genesis of that shirt, the Coach Hunter shirt.
Well, I'm doing a lot of coaching right now, one-on-one with CROs and VPs of different functions around the world. And one of my favorite memories and exhilarating times operating is the one-on-one coaching. You know, you don't think about it as full-time coaching, but you're coaching, you know, you're seeing your people, helping them be better people, better leaders. And one of the things along the way, David, for me, was getting those emails occasionally when someone says, hey, you know, remember that stuff you taught me years ago that really made a difference in my life? And I went, man, that's pretty cool. So, I'm jumping into helping companies transform and people with all these kind of different tips and tricks and experiences the best way I can.
Awesome. So guys, thank you for coming in. If you would, please give a little bit of context to who you are. Like, are you a startup founder? Are you an enterprise salesperson? Do you work in product? What size company do you work in? Just so we can get a little bit of a flavor on the audience, because this LinkedIn Live is designed to be beneficial to you. Right? It's designed that we can ask real questions and tailor the content to benefit you. So please, in the chat, give a little background on who you are, the company size you work for, and a little bit of context on your title. And while people are doing that, I am going to take the time to discuss a little bit about Jon and his involvement within many different types of organizations, mostly large companies. And Jon's been through a couple of these cycles. He's been working in software for a very long time. He's managed and sold into organizations of an aggregate, I think it was $14 billion of ARR. And he's worked with hundreds of thousands of sales reps, and has instituted a lot of leadership development and training in order to make sure that people are successful. And Jon, being a gray hair or a no hair person within the software business, has seen cycles. He has seen different things that have gone on within the technology ecosystem, and he's been able to implement change within specific organizations in a way that's super beneficial. Right now, just as an example, Jon, we got a person that works for Broadcom, mainframe software, formerly Computer Associates. We have a fractional SaaS CFO that's helping founders between 3 to 15 million. We got VPs of customer success, and we have a lot of Jon Hunter fanboys and girls, right? So that's really cool. And a lot of people that want to continue to hear the Jon Hunter wisdom. So with that, I'm going to give it to you. Jon, what are you seeing right now in technology, and how should people think about change?
Yeah, thanks, David. Let me just take a step back. If you go on LinkedIn, look at the career, sometimes you doesn't tell the whole story. So I was at CA Technologies, Computer Associates, for 18 years. What a lot of people don't know about that organization was it started out as a founder-based Charles Wang, eat what you kill culture. So I do have a lot of experience and programs that are from the world of get it done, small. It just happened to be a mainframe business, so the revenues were larger and bulkier. But as far as systems and tools and kind of this get it done, everyone get your hands dirty. It just later in life, the IBMers came in, and I tell the story. We learned how to eat with utensils as they taught us how to scale, and we read leadership books, and we were trained to get things done through system thinking. And so to me, for this lesson, when you grow up, like a lot of people on the call, in a founder culture, you don't have a lot of people, maybe you're bootstrapped. I got nothing but a ton of empathy for that. That is the presentation I wrote to get the job at CA was called Eat What You Kill. And that was because I read the history of Charles starting the company out of his garage. And I said, that's what he's looking for. No entitlement. get things done, outwork the competition, never say no, and be in front of the customer all the time. And there's a lot of grace and wisdom to those attributes today, no matter what size you're in. But the IBMers had some truth too. There is ways to influence, there's ways to implement change, and there's ways to get more success and more productivity through things like today's topic. And that's, to me, where this topic got taught to me was in an LDP leadership development class at CA, where we started really digging in deep on how change really works.
So, you had the opportunity to go into a culture that embraced eat what you kill, let's work hard, play hard, mentality. But a lot of companies today don't have that culture ingrained, and as a result of that, may not be doing well because they've been artificially stimulated by fake money. So
Yeah.
how do you think about that from a company that needs that type of culture to one that already doesn't have it? Like, the die has been cast, right? Now we're talking about change. How do you think about that from somebody that might be an enterprise salesperson that's not in charge of the company from a top-down perspective, ...
Well, first of all, you're spot on, and a lot of people on the call know this, and a lot of people here have been maybe a little bit perplexed, like watching this COVID money come in, watching some of the evaluations of these companies be completely ridiculously valued. The unicorn truly is a unicorn, right? It doesn't exist, and a lot of these valuations shouldn't have existed. And so you're seeing this, I believe, on the verge of down rounds and on the verge of resetting the plateau, is this opportunity to get back to some of the basics, and this opportunity that you can't keep your people with money, you can't chase them around with free candy bars and jelly beans and work from home completely. I mean, there's a balance to integrity and authenticity and grabbing people's hearts and minds to fall in love with the work for longer term thinking and longer term planning that I think is going to become in vogue again for those that get it. And for those who call me for transition coaching, and I do some of that, they said, well, what would you look for today on a private VC company or even a public company gone through some challenges, David? I would say, what did you learn from your experience over the last 18 months? What changes do you want to make? What did you realize? Oh, we shouldn't have done that. That kind of honest integrity around going down the route you just described. I believe some are going to get it. They're going to pivot. They're going to lick their wounds. They maybe take a down round, or maybe they do some other things to reset themselves, and they're going to get back on the right track, and others won't. And that's, to me, what I would be looking for, to go bring some of these hard-hitting, authentic, tough but fair practices that get us consistent revenue in the real world.
And so, like, from your perspective, and guys, I'd like to put, if you just joined, this is designed to be interactive with the audience. So if you have any questions directly for Jon about change management, implementing, drastic changes in culture, right, in order to be more productive, do more with less, I think is the headline here. So please just put it in the chat, and we'll make sure to queue it up for Jon. Jon, so when you're thinking about this change management, you talk about integrity, right? And I think that we, on our last podcast, what we did together, you talked a lot about just carrot dangling, right? And that as a management practice of getting people to work harder is, giving them more things, giving them titles, right? How do you think about that?
It's fool's gold. It's the get skinny quick pill rather than doing the burpees. I don't want to eat broccoli. Broccoli doesn't taste great. I mean, for the folks on the call that have worked together, we've worked in environments that were really tough, but yet you could argue that some of the most invigorating times in your career. And it wasn't about making the money that quarter. It wasn't about your RSUs. It wasn't about the things, and those things are usually fool's gold. They just, when they're set up like that, they're not sustainable. You're never gonna get the hearts and minds. You never get the why for those employees to go all in on your mission. And it really is sad, because you're going to hurt a lot of people. And a lot of these leaders felt like they were doing their job, and they would go to their glass door. My goodness, if you have too high of a glass door, there's something wrong. I mean, it doesn't have to be horrible, but there should be some rumblings that you're pushing people, that we're trying to make you better. Yeah, you come work for me. Yeah, it's not about, the lowest quota and the least amount of work to make the most money. I mean, even saying that out loud just sounds outrageous. Like, why would you go there? I'd want to go to a place where I can get better. I could be on a team of like-minded people, and I'm doing meaningful work. And that meaningful work is hard work. And it has a vision cast by the leader saying, here's where we're going. And this ties into change, David. Why are we going there? Why are we changing? Why the new comp plan? Why the new segmentation? Why did we just cut a third of the workforce? Are you going to cut me next? And if there's not integrity, and integrity in corporate, I call corporate integrity, is the top meets the bottom. That if you were sitting on a floor in Boston and headquarters in San Francisco, but the CEO is saying matches what you're feeling and seeing in your world. And I've been in a lot of companies where we're saying, hey, we're kicking butt, we're taking market share, and you're looking around going, I think we're getting our heads handed to us. And that is
things are going great. Why did everyone get fired? Right?
And they do. They'll say, well, it was just some trimming and it wasn't more than 10%. And that is where they skip the opportunity to get to their hearts, give them that why, give them the detail around it. That means showing some vulnerability. And then you have their hearts to flip into the new plan and the integrity and specifics. And again, that takes courage and vulnerability, because you, in your mind, you're going, boy, can I trust these people? Can I really share this much? And it's the only way to get them to follow you is to show that vulnerability and have the courage to walk the line on the integrity.
Like, hey, we messed up. We spent more money. The market changed. The investors are singing a different tune. We didn't have product market fit like the way we thought we did, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Could be some of the talk tracks. How do you gauge your workforce? Because I see that there's a lot of operators in here, right, that are doing this type of work. How do you gauge the level and the expectation, I guess, you should have with yourself? Because oftentimes operators it's a lonely path. There's not a lot of people to collaborate with. How can you reasonably expect your level of influence to change people that were on one way to go on the new path, the change path? Like, what's your ratio of like promoters versus detractors versus neutral? And how do you think about that?
Well, I don't know if I've ever put it into a percentage. I think it starts with getting those three buckets, and there's usually three buckets, and it's in the book. By the way, a lot of my change comes from Leadership on the Line. I don't, create all this stuff myself. This is a great book. The book does describe three buckets: those that are proponents for what you're doing, those that are neutral, and those that are going to fight you. And I don't have percentages, but you got to know who they are. And your key is to go after the neutrals. That's who we're going after. Those that have the capability, that have the intellectual openness, and then building safety with them and giving them the time to understand why we're going from 100 million to 250. I wrote a post on this most recently, got a lot of fanfare. If I were to take over 100 million and we're going to 500 million, the first thing I'm doing is I'm congratulating everybody for how you got to 100 million. I've used the McKinsey grow or die slide just to show how hard that is. It's almost impossible to get to 100 million. But guess what? It's even harder to get to 500 million. And therefore, in there becomes a lot of questions asking, a lot of gratitude. And some of the minds are going to start opening up. And they're going to go, wait a minute. This guy cares about me. I may be able to help. Now, you may not want to be on that journey to 500 million, but you don't have to leave tomorrow. And that's where I talk about unintended consequences. By far, the number one responsibility for executives is understanding your changes that you're responsible for include unintended hidden consequences. So by you getting those percentages wrong, by you saying, hey, boss, we got to take everybody out. We need to bring in my crew from CA or Oracle or from Marketo, it's just really not productive. It's not good for the business. It's not necessary. So you can sometimes get a 3-year plan and bake 2/3 of them, make it and help you productive through year 2. And then maybe less and less as you move into year 2 and 3, you get more and more new people joining who have more of that sound skill set, but you've made the transition now gracefully. And that's what's key.
And then you can manage out the people kind of on the bottom rung over time.
Well, here's what they do, David. They self-select out.
Mm-hmm.
And they do it gracefully, and they're treated with dignity. You're not calling them names. You're not saying that dude sucked. You started with, hey, you're amazing. You made it to 100 million or 25 million. The number doesn't matter. Hey, we are so proud to be here. Matter of fact, I'm only here because you guys are so freaking amazing. Now, let me walk you through what we're going to do and why we're going to do it to go from here to there. And do you want in on that? We're going to qualify more. The leads are going to happen differently. The competition's more fierce. This is why we're going to spend more time qualifying. This is why we're going to train more. This is why there's discipline. This is why the inspection happens differently, because I want you to know how you doing this makes the company successful and how this makes you successful. I want you to know how you make $1 million in this new world, and they'll come and do it for you, Dave, for a little bit. And then they may say, John, that's just not for me. Here's my 6-month transition plan. I'm going to go do another 0 to 50 or 50 to 100. And that's all good, right? Plenty of time to backfill. Everyone's watching you as you treat them on the way out. And that's a key lesson for everybody. People are watching you as you leave a company, and people underneath you leave. Do not think for a second they're not watching you. Everyone's watching you, because you would do the same thing to them. And that's why it's so key to set that new bar, give them the gratitude, give them the why behind the new machine you're building, and try to get as many to buy into it as you can. And then the others gracefully self-select out. They'll just say, boy, that I understand why you're doing it, but it's not for me. I'll help you get there, and then I'm going to part ways.
How does a conversation process happen if you're, middle management and you're getting tops down directive from CFO, CEO, founder to saying, okay, I get it, right? I might not be the one implementing the decision, but making sure that you manage to the expectation of leaning out while balancing goals, employee sentiment, et cetera.
Well, that's why it's one of the hardest jobs in the business, right? CRO life expectancy is probably down to 15 months. It's not for the faint of heart. This is also why you got to read books like this. You can't get there by bludgeoning yourself there. You're not going to get there. And I use the term half monk, half hitman, or half hit woman. And that's really what this takes. You got to throttle back and forth between getting the job done, making the numbers, seeing the customers, fighting through adversity. And then you got to be able to take a step back and go meet with your peers and meet with your bosses. And you have to influence at 3 levels. You got to be able to translate down, which usually good sales VPs know how to do. Mm-hmm. And then you got to learn to translate sideways, laterally to your peers. What's Jon Hunter doing over there? What are those sales kickoffs all about? What's going on those all hands calls? You ever talk to engineers and product managers and marketers? They have no clue what a lot of VPs of sales are even doing. No one's asked them to join. No one's asked them to put their fingerprints on the operating plan. Hey, what's the CMO think about the conversion rates? What do we think about partner contribution and helping us convert pipeline? No one's brought them into the designing fabric of the plan. And guess what? When you're off on your own and you're in Europe trying to close a deal and someone says, God, Jon Hunter's a pain in the ass, they're probably going, yeah, he is. Or they're going, no, you don't understand. Here's what he's doing. You guys need to buy into this. And you can bring with you your peers, your boss, and your boss's boss, boards, etc., because you've translated, you put the information in context that they can understand it. And it's probably top 5 what I see CROs just don't want to do. Just like, hey, screw you. Let me just sell. I don't know if anyone on here has heard that. Just let me sell. Why can't I just sell? This place is so political. That's a really short-sighted and cul-de-sac like thinking, and it's supported in the book. It suggests that politics, Dave, should be seen as neutral, not positive, not negative, but neutral. And just you think about it, that no one goes through life alone. We got to go through this thing together. So if you could be a CRO, try to understand where people's heart rates are, bring the up and the sideways with you, and then do what you do best by just selling that vision and driving the machine with your people. You got a fighting chance.
Yeah. I think the whole, like, why can't you just let me sell is a function of, okay, I'm either an individual contributor or at best director level. When you're having senior level leadership, you have to be multidisciplinary. You have to play well with others.
Well, but if you think about it, a lot of people, especially in the last 2 years, did not go through traditional evolutions in their job titles. I mean, I see a lot of, second line managers who I'm coaching. One consistent theme is, hey, Jon, I was never given VP training. So let's just assume VP is a second line manager, managing managers. It's a very different functional job than when you were a rep. So if you're in Startupville and you're growing fast, you could easily be a functional leader of some complexity and some scale and have zero training, zero books read, zero coaching on how different that job just went from being individual contributor to managing 6 people. Now you manage 26 people and 2 or 3 managers, and that's a radically different job. And I think in tech in particular has just stopped training on these types of leadership topics, and that's a miss. It's a missed opportunity.
Yeah, or it just doesn't, exist. I mean, I think there's one of the really, there's a lot of things from an enterprise perspective that are great. You have security, but there's a lot of people that don't like big corporations. But there's one thing that they undoubtedly always have, because there's budget for it, is professional development and leadership development. And so how do you, if you're to talk to the startup founders that don't have a ton of budget for conferences, training, coaches, how do you think about leadership development and professional development within your organization?
Well, look, again, remember CA in the early days, we didn't have any. I've never, by the way, go look at all my companies. I've been profitable the whole time. I've never had, such budgets and funding to just not think about the bottom line. I've always treated every dollar like it's my own. And so we've always had to really work it around the edges to find ways to get better. And one thing is you'll find that you'll have people on your staff today that are great leaders that have, for whatever reason, maybe they're military, maybe they're athletes, and they're there and they have some of this knowledge. They have some of this wisdom. Most of the wisdom and knowledge I got as a young seller was from other people on different sales teams who would take you under their wing or be used as a teacher or a sharer of maybe they've been in the business longer than you. You can get a lot out of just deciding to set up your time as the CEO and go, guys, we are going to learn together on how to scale and lead. I'm going to anoint one of you as the person to go read something and share it. What else can we do? Hey, Bob used to work in the military. What did you learn in the military, Bob, that we can take advantage of? Just getting your people better. Number one, keeps them off LinkedIn. I'm telling you that right now. If you want your people off LinkedIn, give them the general sense, holy cow, I think I got a little bit better today. And it'll go way further than the bumping, maybe a little bit bumping a bonus. And you can do it with people you have already. You can do it with resources that are around you already. But I just seen a lack of intellectual openness that is what we want to do. There's usually a frenzied bias for action, do it now, tortoise hair thing going on where we just don't even want to calm down. We don't even want to go to yoga and just calm down for an hour and say, hey, how are we doing? And I think that's what's going on in some of those founders that are starting to feel stress because of the macro conditions, or they're starting to see their valuations maybe be in jeopardy, and it's triggering that neocortex, and they're going into fight or flight mode. But in the minute we go into fight or flight mode, what do we all know? You're at your least intelligent. So now decisions being made are really dangerous. and we get into unintended consequences really fast.
Yeah. So I really like that. I think there's a lot of value in recurring invites, that no one really thinks about, is that, okay, if I'm going to do a recurring invite for one-on-ones with specific employees, there's one thing that you said that I really loved on our podcast, which was, you talk about leadership development, you talk about culture. Let me see your calendar. Right.
Yeah.
And you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, I do. Where's your calendar? And if anyone's interviewing or you're assessing a company to join, show me your budget. You ever see this on LinkedIn or some of the marketing? Hey, we're all about people. We're all about making you. Well, show me your calendar if you're a leader that shows that you are, in fact, spending time with your people, listening to them. Show me that the budget is there for those that are bigger companies that do have formal HR departments. How empowered is the HR department? I can't tell you how many times I hear, yeah, we have HR, but they aren't HR. Like, what? What are they doing here? Yeah. I went from HRs out to get me from, using the F word in like 1998 to HR is my best friend, helping me scale, helping me delegate, helping me, make people better. And that's key in this business is getting other people to help you do your job and using these functions. But, someone says, hey, I manage 30 people really well. I'll be like, well, show me. How do you, well, my people love me. Well, how would you know? Right. I wrote this post from a VP who had 400 people. And I said, how do you people feel about you? He goes, they love me. I go, how would you know? He said, well, they tell me. I go, well, wait a minute. You give the promotions, you give their bonuses, you could hire and fire them. But you think that would be a little intimidating? And of course, I already knew through the blind surveys that people didn't love him. And he had a blind spot. And that became a good example of, not using best practices, not knowing how the human mind works and how power works. And, you don't need a lot of money to know that, to start building into your calendar to say, hey, look, I want to do skip level interviews. A skip level is simply your time skipping below your manager to just go talk to an employee. No agenda, no operation, no forecast. How are you doing? Is my message getting down? Is all of the cool stuff filtering properly? How would you know with evidence that it is, unless you're deploying these techniques that should manifest onto your calendar if you are committed to doing it? If you're not, you're just like a lot of managers. You're a lot of talk. And as you know, from having young kids, if you don't do what you say you're going to do, especially with salespeople, they will smell you out in 1 week. He's that manager that just gives a lot of orders and doesn't follow through, doesn't have the calendar discipline. And so I think that gives you that integrity that we talked about earlier. And then the budgets comes along with it. If you're going to want more people, I'd take less people, better trained, better funded, better supported than a whole bunch of people to go somehow tell people how many people report to you. Got to have the funding. You got to have the training. We got to make sure that we deliver it to these people. And those are the sales forces, Dave, that are not quitting right now, because there are people making their numbers right now. And now those are the people that are making their numbers.
Going to open up a question, guys. If you want to ask any questions, please use the chat. This is designed to be interactive. But from Omar, do you see that, John?
Oz, yeah.
And you want to read the question out loud?
Well, that's because Oz went to Harvard, so that's the problem with Oz's questions. He's trying to he's showing off his Harvard smarts right there, but
Harvard, yeah,
Harvard. Hey, look, Oz, this is similar, right? I mean, half monk, half hitman. Strategy planning. I like the McKinsey 3 horizons to get a sense with product management on where are we going and what someone's responsible for kind of watching macro trends. Why are we building the enhancements to the product? What are the partners saying about it? Are we ready to go to Europe? Those things should be separated lightweight into different horizons. Horizon 1 is owned by you. It's owned by me. That's the plan we're in. We're driving that plan. And let's not get distracted from Horizon 1. So there are some really clever ways, and I see this glaringly missing at multi-billion down to startup. You don't need to have a full-time employee from McKinsey to own your McKinsey 3 horizons. You just need to have the intellectual depth to say, you know what? Let's set aside some time strategically to map out what we want to do next year, a year and a half. And then let's put some blue sky time for, hey, where are we going to be 4 years from now? Acquisitions, strategic partnerships. You attend that meeting, Oz, but you don't have to run that meeting because you're running Horizon 1, the plan we're in right now with all the metrics, all the KPIs, laser focused. And so that's one way I like to balance tactical actions and not letting. And when I hear you say that, what I see a lot is we bring all 3 horizons to one meeting. And that is a disaster. SaaS killed us. We missed the market. No product market fit. The partners suck. Comp plan's wrong. And there you are, CEO, going, holy cow, where am I going? Can we just make the forecast? And you're in all these wild discussions that are in multiple horizons. And we want to, we really want to avoid that.
That's great. Okay, so we're wrapping up. Jon, where can people find you?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me at www.hunterxlife.com, where I started doing my podcasting, and I'm now launching some coaching and advising on these topics. Again, someone mentioned earlier, this is leadership on the line. Biggest takeaway from this book that I do coach and teach on is adaptive problems from technical problems. Can't go through it today, but it's something to leave you with. So reach out to me, call me. Send me a LinkedIn note, and I just hope everyone can get a little better today.
Yep. Jon's got some great content on LinkedIn, got a great podcast, and he helps a lot of people, and he's very accessible. So please, if you are an operator, a founder, somebody that needs to implement change within their organization and just doesn't know where to start, Coach Hunter is the way to go. And I'm coming by your house today, Jon. I want that shirt. I want you to sign it.
I'll sell anything. Sure.
I love it. I love it. Everyone, that's Jon Hunter. You can reach him on LinkedIn. And I'm David Paul. I'm an early stage investor. If you like what you see here, we do one of these about every month. LinkedIn Live with just experts in their specific domain, whether it's sales, marketing, entrepreneurship, frameworks. And I also have a podcast. It's all weekly. It's called The Capital Stack. And if you also have a blog that you can find online. So please reach out, follow. If you have any questions, love to hear from you. All right. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Dave.